Towards the end of the sermon, I'm going to ask everyone, or the end of the lesson, I'm going to ask everyone to unmute themselves so that we can have a discussion and add to Walter's lesson. My name is Mark, and I am the podium assistant today. To stop your own video if you don't want to be seen, this is being recorded and will be made available to those who press on the link. It will not be available to the world on YouTube, but it will be available to anyone who has the link. And we send the link to our congregants. I am blessed to live a life of grace. How comforting it is to realize that I don't have to do anything to earn love and blessing. Just by realizing that good is everywhere around me and within me, I know that my life is already filled with goodness and abundance. I live in a state of grace and give thanks for moments of joy. I revel in experiences that remind me of the greatness of the universe and my role in it. In those times when I feel the stress of this busy season, I take a moment to remember the grace that is always mine. I observe the activities around me, festive celebrations, loving acts of service, the beauty of people sharing and caring for one another. I know, and I know deep in my soul that all is well. The law, indeed, was given through Moses. Grace and truth come through Jesus Christ. John 1:7. Opening statement. There is only one power and one presence in the universe. God the good, all power, ever present, all knowing, and we are one. And now for our vision statement. We are a spiritual community with a passion to share love, faith, and hope. And our mission statement. We are an accepting, loving, and faith-filled spiritual community that honors all paths to God. Announcements. I don't have any announcements. Sandra, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Do you have any announcements?
The only announcement that I have is that, as far as I know, we're still doing a town meeting immediately following the service. And I'm not quite sure where that stands, other than I'm planning on that and hoping everyone will be able to stay on and participate in that.
Okay. Are there any other announcements from the floor? And if you have something you would like, please feel free to unmute yourself. There is so much abundance here because there is so much love here. And love in itself is just an expression of abundance of everything. Dave's musical talents, he will share.
Deep in the center of your being is a place of perfect peace. As you close your eyes, breathe slowly, deeply. Let all of your thoughts go as if clouds in the sky. Just let them all pass. With every breath, realize the divine intelligence within restores and harmonizes every cell of your being. As your body relaxes, your mind is naturally filled with just the greatest ease. In the space between my words is the presence of the divine, located right in your heart. Focus on your heart and breathe into this space, filling your whole being with a bright golden light. With every breath, this beautiful golden light expands until all of us become one light, one brilliant, beautiful light. In this space is all possibility. Help is here. Everything you need with faith, believing, will come to you naturally and easily. Just know you are cared for, dearly and deeply loved. In this space, I am. I am joy. I am peace. I am forgiveness. And I am love. The divine presence within you and in all things brings exactly whatever is needed for us to become a greater and greater expression of love. Feel the presence of this within you in the silence, in the silence. As you begin to return back to this physical space, let your inner smile spread across your face as you open your eyes. Let your love shine. Feel your beauty. Know you can return to this space at any moment by closing your eyes and simply breathing into your precious heart. Namaste. Namaste.
I would now like to introduce our speaker, Walter. He is a man who I've seen walk his talk, very spiritual man, and a leader in a small community that meets at essential energies. So please welcome Walter.
Today, I want to give you a brief outline of what I'm going to talk about. And so I'm going to talk about a key concept. I'm going to try to give you some context between the Course of Love and the Course in Miracles. I'm going to talk about my goal for today. Then I'm going to talk about some definitions, which I call sub-concepts, and then some bigger concepts. And then we'll review what we went over today. So starting with the key concept, if you get nothing else from today, this is what you should remember. Lou Ann even talked about it. And that key concept is love is what you are. If you understand that concept and you practice it, you don't need to study anything else. In reality, you can't be anything else. And this was alluded to in the Bible. I'm not a big Bible scholar, but I know some items. In the Bible, it says you were created in the image and likeness of God. So what else could you be than love? So that's the key concept for today. Now the context. Where does the Course in Love fit into the context of the Course in Miracles and in the Course of Love? I believe the Course of Love is a follow-on to the Course in Miracles. I've studied the Course in Miracles for 20 to 30 years. And for a lot of people, the Course is not an easy read. Although I believe the concepts are simple, the reading is hard. And I also believe that the Course of Love was given to us by the same author, by the way, as an easier read. I believe it has the exact same concepts as the Course in Miracles does. And we're going to go over some of those. We've already gone over the main concept. If you remember, the key concept here is love is what you are. There is no other reality. There's no other possibility for what you are. I said the same author authored both texts, and I'll give you the punchline, and that's Jesus, Christ, whatever. What's my goal today? My goal today is to help you move forward with the key concept, because that's something that your ego has a lot of trouble with. The ego tells you that that's not true. And your job is to work against the ego and get to the point where you can believe that. We may not get through everything today because there's a lot of concepts in this chapter. But that's okay because I've already told you the key concept. And like I said before, if you focus on that key concept, you don't need anything else. Everything else is just helping you point towards that key concept. So what are some of the sub concepts or definitions under that? Love. Now I'm going to reference some of the paragraphs in case you're following along, which I don't know if you are, in the text itself. But in paragraph 2:1, it says an interesting thing. It says you cannot be taught love. But all you can do is try to figure out where you can see love. Love can only be recognized, it can't be taught. So the question becomes is how do you recognize it? By its effects. A personal story is I'm not a big believer in anything. And that includes the Bible, the Course of Miracles, the Course of Love. And guess what? The Course says that that's okay. Because what it says, this is the Course in Miracles. I haven't found this particular item in the Course of Love yet. The Course says, I know you don't believe this stuff, but what I'd like you to do is try it. See what happens. That's what they mean in this paragraph. It's actually 2.5, where it says, hey, you'll know it, you'll recognize it by its effects. You try these love concepts, see what happens. And eventually you might believe it. Or, as the key concept is, you'll finally understand and know that you are love. In paragraph 2.6, it continues on to say, love is not something you do. Now that concept sounds a little hard to believe. And here is the key concept again. Love is not something you do, it's what you are. In different places, this chapter talks about the world. And it says there's a lot of misery out there. And one of the things it says about love is love doesn't see that. Now you're going, come on, give me a break. How is that possible? Well, supposedly, and I can't tell you this from personal experience, is if you truly believe that you were love, then I guess you wouldn't see the misery. What's the next sub-concept? And that is truth. That's in paragraph 2.1, it says, you are constantly choosing between illusion and truth. So we introduced another concept there, that's illusion. Well, what is truth? Truth is that you are love. That's truth. What is illusion? Anything that says you're not. This whole world says that. It says, hey, show me the love. All I see is misery. So the illusion is the world. Truth is the fact that you are love. The concept of real is very close to the concept of truth. In paragraph 2.2, it says, everything real is from God, and nothing real exists. Nothing unreal exists. Another hard concept, for me, my eyes see a whole bunch of stuff, but that's not what's real. The definition of real here is you are love. In paragraph 2.9, it defines insanity. Guess what? Insanity is your ego thought process. Insanity is the world you see, the world you perceive. What is sane? It's very simple. It's the key concept. What is sane is you are love. Here, the next in paragraph 2.10, he defines self with a capital S. You think of yourself as a small f, S. That's your body. He's defining the capital S, self. Your real self is the Christ within you. Another way to say that is you are love. In 2.11 and 2.14, we go back to the concept of illusion and define that. Here in this world, in 2.11, it says, your small t truth is everything you see and perceive. That's the illusion. In in chapter 2.14, it says you do not see reality as it is. What you see is illusion, the misery, the world. And I'm not going to talk about the last subconcept, ego, because from 2.19 through 2.23, it talks about the ego a lot. And, we could talk 2 hours on the ego. So basically, the simple idea is the ego is your illusions, is your fear. Okay, so those were the definitional subconcepts. Now I want to get to the big concepts, the big subconcepts underneath the key concept. And another personal story is I said earlier that I don't really believe much at all. And take what you want, what I mean by the word belief, because I'm not sure I can define it for you. Because before the course and what I'm going to tell you next, everything was extremely confusing. Emotions were confusing to me. Religions were confusing to me. I grew up Catholic. Then I started studying other things, so I got more and more confused. I was taught to believe, and I was reaching the conclusion that I could not believe anything. So I don't remember how I got introduced to the course, but I started reading it, and yes, immediately it seemed like a very hard read. So I would put it down, read something, put it down, read something. So I read randomly for a year or two. Still a very hard read. And then, due to circumstances, meaning at lunch at work, I would go to the big boy and read while I was eating. And that's when I started from page 1 and read through to the end, very slowly. But still, at the beginning, it was a very hard read. And then I read one thing, three or four words, and the light turned on. And if you want to call that a turning point in my life, yes, that's what it was. What were those 3 or 4 words? There is only love and fear. Now, did I know what that meant immediately? First of all, I didn't believe it, but it hit me and it stayed with me, and I kept thinking about it. And at that point, things started to become much clearer. It made all that religion stuff much clearer. It made all that emotion stuff much clearer. And, you know, if you want to think of the concept of a mantra, that's one of my mantras. That's what I go to. There is only love and fear. You could call it another key concept. For me, it was a key concept. So what's another key concept? The Christ is in you. Well, if you think about the key concept I told you at the beginning, you are love, then how can this next sub-concept not be true? Christ is in you. He's there, you just can't figure out how to see him. In 2:15, he says, or it says, Christ is within you and you rest within God. Now, the next sentence after that was a key sentence because in the course, it was never this clear. Remember at the beginning, I said the author of both the Course of Miracles and the Course of Love were the same entity, and that is Christ. Here in the Course of Love, he makes that explicit in paragraph 215. After he says, Christ is within you and you rest within God, it says, I vowed to never leave you. Who the heck is I? It's Christ. So the next big concept in this paragraph is in 216, and it gives you a sort of a practical way of getting to the key concept. And that says you have to reverse your thinking. You think all of this is real. You think all this misery is real. And remember I said, just try it and see what the effects are. Well, that's what this is saying. Try to reverse your thoughts, see what happens. In 216, it says, you have not yet sufficiently reversed your thinking, or your heart would not be as troubled as it is. And it goes on further to say, all your attempts to keep things separate are but a reignite. I gotta have some water, hang on. All your attempts to keep things separate are but a enactment of the original separation. Now, there's a key concept. I talked about this when we had our Wednesday night. The original separation. That's the what the Catholics called original sin. That was your original choice. The choice to be separate. The choice to create this world. The choice to create these illusions. The choice to not see who you are. And who are you? You are love. Now, the last major sub-concept, and it's a hard one for everyone to believe because everybody thinks God made this world. Well, in 2:17, it says, nope, he didn't. You did. Because you chose to be separate, and you're still choosing that. Because you're choosing not to understand and to know that you are love. In 2:17, he says, your thought system is what made the world you see. The ego is your constant companion in its continued existence. Okay, I've gone through the main body of my talk. Let's review. And I've probably said it at least 15 times. What's the key concept? You are love. What are some of the other concepts? There's only love and fear. That, for me, clarified so much, everything. Next, the Christ is in you. How could it not be? What do you need to do? You need to try to reverse your thinking. Just try it. See what the effects are. Try to see that this is an illusion and that you are actually love. And finally, guess what? You're the one that made this world. And you can choose differently. And with that, if there's any questions or discussion.
I believe that there is only love and fear, because if God is love and there's nothing else, then naturally, if we are away from God, which we are, says the ego, there's going to be fear. But as long as we recognize ourselves as a body, then that says that there's fear. And anytime we're God is our protector. He's our protector. He envelopes us, with his love. So I think one of the ways to recognize love is to meditate. And that's where we focus and concentrate mostly on love, and one of the ways we most recognize it. And there are other ways to recognize it, like through people, sharing love, the things we do for one another. So I just wanted to share my understanding of why there is what was written. We are love. And it's one thing to know it intellectually, but another thing to a belief is just something that we keep telling ourselves, right? But letting go of all the beliefs is even our senses, our fear. Because I know firsthand, I shared this before, when I was in recognition that I was in the care of God, there was no thought, there was no fear, there was no sight, there was no sound. It was light, just light, just light. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Well, two things. I read that whole verbiage chapter out loud last night. And it was really interesting to me to read it and hear it at the same time. And the one thing that I do agree with is that love doesn't see misery. And the reason is, well, first of all, I've experienced those places where I felt so much love. It felt so much bigger than myself that I was just awestruck. And at that point, when I would look at people, all I could see is their absolute beauty, just their absolute love, and would be so confused if they were to say anything else other than that. In electronics, Dan said, the principle of resonance, when we hold that space of love, then other people, as they're drawn to it magnetically, will begin to attempt their own personal resonance at that higher rate, a more expanded rate. I don't like to say higher. So I just really appreciate that you brought all this up, because it's been really on my mind. The other thing is that I don't see, my opinion only, I don't see fear as the opposite of love. I just see fear as not focusing on, it's like and we can't even say that we're absent of love, because that's what we are. We're just not completely resonating with it. So that's my.
I like that, what you just said about love and fear. It's a cover up for love. I think that's what you said.
Yes.
Well, Walt, I share this trait with you, that belief systems, especially other people's belief systems, usually they're presented in the form of rules and laws. And every time I hear someone else's rule and law, my mind immediately goes to look for the one exception or the one point where that brings them to a screeching halt. And so far, most human laws and belief systems have that one thing that you'll find, there's the flaw, that's invalid. I'm not going along with that. So in life, I somehow refer to myself as a tool person, that when I do hear an idea or something, I'd say, well, that's a possibility. I'll make that part of my toolkit. So I just had the thought, this concept you presented with things are either in love or in fear. I had the thought of, well, here's another toolkit. It's something you can use that to test things. So as every day we come upon a new concept, a new object, and I think there's a third area, or some things we are unaware or ignorant of, and some things we're neutral on when we first are, they present themselves to us. So new, to me, this is a new tool to in the kit to try on when something new comes at us. What is our initial feeling, love or fear? And I think this could then be a test to open us up into, say, expansion, and to go within. And why is my initial reaction, say, fear? Is it unknown? Is it some closed symbol? Like I open a dark room and there's no light switch. If that fear sets in, well, where does that go back to? And so I think this could be a tool that we put in our toolkit.
I agree 100%.
I have a comment too. I think I totally believe there's only love and fear. And I think fear is a way that we have maintained ourselves in this three-dimensional reality. And it does require an ego to keep separate. And it requires us to be fearful, to keep separate. And so I guess the pain gets great enough and you want to not have the pain anymore. So you find a way to look for another way deep in yourself. I think sometimes it's just release. You just plain can't deal with whatever the fear is anymore. You just release. You just float on top of the water instead of fighting to stay up. And when you do that, you come to the top of the surface. Everything is peaceful. You're still here. I think that what I've learned, what little I've learned from the latter part of the Book of Love, is that there is a way to be physical and yet still believe, know that you are loved. And for me right now, and my as much as I understand it right now, is that for me it's I have a choice. I can choose love or I can choose fear. And there are lots of things to look at to see be fearful about. But I can also twist it in my mind to look at it another way. Change isn't going to happen here until we bottom out. That's one way of looking at it. Change isn't going to happen here until we have this contrast, this fear in our lives is kind of a self-healing mechanism, because there comes a point in time when we can't take it anymore and we have to look for what will make us better, I guess. Or at least that's how I'm relating to it currently. And I really do believe that, as Luann was saying, in which she was talking about her vision, is that when we are positive, and a lot of people will say, oh, you're just being Pollyanna, you're not seeing the truth. I have a sister-in-law who's always telling me, I only watch the true news, all the black, dark, nasty stuff that's going on in the world. And I watch the news that tells how people are all over the world are doing little things to change that, that are helping out in prisons to help young men who were there for their whole lives for something they did when they were teenagers. And different people like the Ho'oponopono started with a prison situation. And so there's, I can see the hope, I guess. And that's how I turn it around. I look for the positive in the darkness, I guess. And if I can turn it around in my mind, maybe someday I'll be able to sense that big light of love. God, I hope I don't have to have a near-death experience to do it.
Thank you.
I have a thought. Um, we, we know the term, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And, life is a path. We're always talking about, we honor all paths, and a path means movement and progress. So we just don't get it all at once. At least I don't. I studied the Course in Love several years ago and got a lot out of it. I'm in a group now, and it's like, oh my goodness, there's stuff there I didn't see before, stuff that because this is what I need to know now. So it's a process.
Right.
I had a thought when you were talking, Walt. You talked about the effects of love, and I think one of the effects of love is our feelings, but it's the feeling of joy, the feeling of peace, the wonderful feelings that we have. And I think when we move away from love, then it becomes painful. I think anger is painful. I think anxiety is painful, and fear is painful. And I think love loves to share. And when we are with love, then we want to share ourselves. And then the ego comes in, oh no, you're not worthy, and then we want to go like this or recline. But when we want to share, and I love sometimes little kids when they say, wow, you're awesome, and they say, yeah, I know, and they're sharing themselves because they're holding on to love. And as adults, whenever we see kindness and a smile, it's the sharing of love, and it's so simple. So I'm so appreciating your talk today. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree 100% with the effects you listed. I mean, what else could it be?
I have a question, Walt. A long time ago, I remember reading I think it was a philosopher, and he said that in his opinion, all fears could be reduced to the fear of death. The humans have the fear of death. Would you care to comment how that would relate to what you said, love and versus fear?
Yeah. The Course says that same thing too, but it talks about it in fear in relationship to the ego. The ego is the result of your decision originally to separate from God. Okay. And the ego is horrendously afraid of dying. And what would that death look like? Well, that death to the ego would look like that understand, believe, totally embrace the concept that you are love. So you asked that question in reference to a body. In other words, is that the ultimate fear? I guess so. Now it's interesting, and this is an aside, when psychologists have people rank what their fears are, that's not number one. It turns out number one is the fear of speaking in public. Number two is death. So just as an interesting aside, but yes, but there's a whole bunch of other fears that we go through. If somebody calls me a bad name, well, I'm afraid he might be right. And that causes an emotional reaction in me, etc. So to summarize, the fear of death, you are the ego. The ego's afraid of death. And that death means you join back and choose something different. You join to be with God.
Well, I would like to add on to what Virginia was saying about not hoping not to have a hit bottom experience, to have a out of body experience. And although I say I didn't choose that, I don't realize that I choose that. But when it happened, I fell into love, complete love. There's no fear to have an out of body experience. That showed me that gave me a concrete knowing of love, an experience, an understanding. That is fear. I know we don't want to hit bottom. I didn't want to hit bottom, but that's what happened. Maybe I needed to hit bottom to learn what I learned when I fell into love. It was one of the greatest things that is within me, that I know, and that is real. It was a real experience, the most real I've ever known, the best.
Well,
It
thank
was
you,
the ultimate. It was the ultimate.
Susan. I guess I feel jealous of you and Luann, because even though I've studied this stuff for a long time, I've never got to the point where I felt, I think, what you and Luann described. So I'm still looking forward to that.
You know what came to my mind as I was listening to everyone talk? Well, number one, I like the Course of Miracle and the Course of Love, and any one that I hear when they say, you do not have to believe this. I just want you to be open to it. Then I can walk and listen fearlessly, because they're not taking the choice or taking my choice away, or condemning me if I do not believe. So I like that. The other thing, when you said that love sees no sadness or pain, I understand that to some degree, because I see that if you're looking at everything and everyone through God's eyes, you're looking at them without judgment. So instead of, let's say, seeing pain, you would look at it as they're going through a learning process, but that's not necessarily bad, because as uh, my mind goes back, just said that that's where we learn, is when we sometimes have to hit bottom. It's not necessarily bad. The other thing that came to me was that we do create. I'm accepting that now. I'm learning that we create what we see, and we have to own it. And I cannot anymore blame and say it was because of that I said this or did this. I have to own it, and that's a very liberating. The other thing that came to me is when I read the Bible, I started to accept the Bible, not the New Testament. Whenever I see the word Jesus Christ, I automatically, to me, means Christ is unconditional love. And that makes sense. I never could quite understand what Christ was. I know the Catholics would say, the Holy Spirit and that, but I couldn't get that concept. But now I understand that you are able to see people and things around you through God's eyes. To me, that's what unconditional love is. So that's just for me. But another thought that came to me, and I'm thinking, okay, love or fear, there's only two. I understand that. And fear automatically means to protect. That's, to me, that's the word. If there's fear there, that means I have to protect something, someone, some way. And I was thinking, fear, when we decided wherever that was or whatever to separate, that feeling was so different than what it was when we were in the moment of unconditional love. I mean, that would put the fear into me going into the abyss of unknown. And so from that point on, I could see where we were just traveling everywhere, feeling and seeing all these different sensations that we created. That's for me. I'm not saying, but to me, that's the way I saw when fear was. It was that separation. And from then on, it just, we created our different fears. But I got a lot from it. Thank you, Walt. Appreciate that.
This is Mark. It's 12:08, and maybe we have time for one more, and then we're going to go into our closing, and then maybe take a 2-minute break while Dave is playing some music, and then start our town meeting. So, did anyone have? We have
Yeah,
time for maybe one more.
Walt, I'm kind of a what if person. So when we take the word fear, what if you're on a dark street and you go by a tree and you hear a very strange sound like a wild animal gurring and growling, and your hair stands up. There are some cases where fear is a very good protective thing. So I was thinking, but what if there are some valid fears we need to take note of, especially if it's a fight or flee situation?
Yeah. A person that I respect told me many times that there's really two kinds of fear. There's good fear and bad fear. And what you just described was good fear. And, you know, while we're in this illusion, and I don't think I'm going to be anytime soon going poof, you know, now I'm ascended. You know, I'm probably going to die with never ascending. So while I'm still alive, there's this good fear. And fear has a use here. And like I was just alluding to, I don't think we're all going to ascend, you know, in a glorious ascension. So yes, we're going to be in these bodies. So what is the Course telling you? Well, I think it's summed up in the fact or the statement, just try this and see what happens.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thanks, Walt. Okay. As we move into closing, so let's go into the peace song, and then we'll say the prayer of protection together. light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. And that's the truth. Thank you, everyone. And Dave will play a song or two, and I'll see you in a few minutes.